Hey everyone, and welcome. My name is Lisa Baldwin. This is lots of fun. It's a super simple and easy project that anyone can do, and I mean anyone. What we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk you through all the supplies you'll need. We're going to cut it out. We're going to sew it. We're going to do some ironing. We're going to do some sewing. We're going to do some hot gluing because, like I said, these are not, this is not rocket science. This is a simple project, and I'm going to use a self-healing mat to lay out my pattern today because I use a rotary cutter when cutting these out. So let's take a look at the supplies in addition to the panel. We're going to be using some scissors or a rotary cutter, whichever you have and whichever you prefer. Is of Velcro, some poly bands like these little scrunchy bands, as well as a glue gun. And also we will need some grow ribbon, but that's not totally necessary, and I'll show you why in just a couple minutes. I like to use clips instead of pins, and also we need a dog collar to put the bandana on. In addition, one last thing is a pen. So let's go ahead and get started on cutting this out. So once we have all the other pieces moved off to the side, I'm going to start off with my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to use my quilting ruler to run down these straight edges. Now I tried my best to get these things lined up so when you cut one long line, you're actually cutting a couple things at the same time. So you're getting the tag as well as the centerpiece of the bow. And it's just going to take a quick minute or two to cut out all of these things. Now, if they don't cut all the way through, you can either just clip it like that, or you can take your scissors and snip them. These don't have to be perfectly cut out because they get sewn. I'll show you how they get sewn, and it makes it pretty simple if you're not exactly on the line. So don't panic if it's not perfect on the line. So yeah, and as you can see, I had to use the scissors to get that little snip off of there. So sometimes it's just easy to use the scissors, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So if you don't have a rotary cutter, no worries, just use a regular pair of scissors. So, all right, so let me go ahead and get the rest of these pieces cut out. All of the cut lines are marked, and you just go right around. This is a really simple project to cut out and to get started. So I'll go ahead and get all that done right now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and cut out the bandana. I'm going to use my rotary cutter on these long straight edges, but I'm going to follow up at the end with using my scissors to get those little sharp corners cut out and get this freed from the background. So let me go ahead and get this cut out. Okay, well, it looks like we got it all cut out, and now we've got our pieces. So we've got it completely removed from the panel, and as you can see, you've still got your bandana instructions for the bandana there, and you've also got your QR code for the rest of the pieces, but you've got access to this video. And also check out my YouTube channel where there's more videos on other things other than just these bandanas. So all right, so in the video earlier, I mentioned that we were going to make a bow with a tail on it. So this particular piece here we're going to use, we need a couple more things. We need scissors, a pen, and this particular piece. This piece is going to be folded from side to side and just nice and just give it a good press with your fingers and then fold it over top to bottom. So you're going to have all the layers there in one. Now the next thing we're going to do is what we're doing is we're creating a point for this piece on the bow. So I'm going to measure over 1 inch from the right edge into the left. So 1 inch in, and you can use a ruler or you can use, I'm using my grid, but let's just double check my measurements. Like always, measure twice, cut once. Right? Then I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line from that point that I measured in down to the bottom point. So just measure and then draw a little line, and there you have it. You see there's going to be a point on your piece for your bow. I'm going to use my rotary trimmer for this, so I'm just going to line that up. You can use scissors. So I'm just going to use my rotary trimmer on this and trim it up. And so now that piece is ready to be pressed and prepped for sewing. So, all right, we have all our pieces. Now let's head on over to the ironing board and get these things pressed. Okay, we're going to start off by giving this a quick press. All right, we're just going to, and I like to press things on the back side just in case there's something on that iron that's going to scorch it or make a little mark. But this is a relatively new iron and it's clean, but I still like to use it on the back side. Plus, we're going to go ahead and fold those tabs to the back side of the print over 1 inch. We're going to fold both of them over, give it a good press, and then we are going to take those same tabs, fold it in half again, press it, and do that, repeat that on both sides. And then once you've got those two pieces folded for a second time and pressed, you're going to fold it one more time over, tucking in that raw edge, and press it. You're going to repeat this on both tabs so that you get a nice, clean, pressed edge for sewing. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple clips here for this just to hold it in place, and feel free to use pins, or maybe you don't need to use as many as I did, but here I like to just keep this stuff in place before I head to the sewing machine. So, and go ahead and do that on both ends and throw some clips in there. So now let's get started on the bow for the girl print. So it's 3 pieces. We have our long piece that we've cut on an angle. That is going to be the tail of the bow, if you like to call it that. You just fold it side to side and crease it down the center. Same thing, this piece here is the center of the bow tie, or the bow, I'm sorry. And lastly is the bow itself. You're just going to fold it top to bottom and crease it down the center. So these 3 pieces are ready for the sewing machine. I'm not going to use any pins for this because it's just a flat, straight thing to sew. And then we've got our bandana. So we're pretty much ready to go with that. We've got our bandana, our 3 pieces for the bow. And the last thing we need to do is prep the tag, if you'd like to go ahead and add that as well. So the prep for the tag is pretty easy. I just gotta go ahead and fold it end to end, so it kind of gives me a center mark, and then I'm gonna flip it over and fold it the backs over to the center. So basically folding it that way, it shows just the label itself on the front side. So then what I'm going to do is fold top to bottom and then put a little crease in it. So as you can see, it looks like that. And the tag is actually double-sided. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a little press. And then what I like to do is I like to clip those little extra pieces just to take away some of the bulk in the tag, so it lies a little bit flatter when sewing it into the bandana. So now make sure you don't clip it all the way to the corner, just taking off a little bit extra bulk on that tag. And that is it. Let's see, you just fold it in half. And you can press it one more time, but you are good to go with the tag. It's all done. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine. I'm all set up. I'm just using standard thread and a needle. And as you can see, I've got my pinned edges. And we are just going to go ahead and run this right down the edge. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance or seam. And we're just going to go ahead and do, get a little starting point. We get back and forth. And just a straight stitch all the way down from end to end on the tab. Now we're going to repeat this process on both sides. Make sure you kind of, give yourself a little extra security there for that, and just do a little back stitch on it, top and bottom, and there is one side already done. Now I'm telling you, this is really simple to put together, so we're going to go ahead and repeat this process on the other side as well. Start with a little back stitch on it just to give yourself some stability, and then run it from end to end, and now you have your tabs already sewn together. Okay. So now once we have that done, the next step is to turn this, first let's clip a little bit of those stray strings or threads off of there, which is easy to do. You can do it now or later, either way, but this is very simple. So all we're going to do is flip it right sides together, go ahead and flip it right sides together, and then we're going to match up those points on our tabs and put a clip, and that is going to hold it together. Now that opening right there that you've just clipped or clipped together is where the bandana is going to have the opening for the collar. So all right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add that cute little tag. So this piece is totally optional, but I would love if you would put my tag in it, especially when you're making your dogs are out there sporting these really cute bandanas. So, all right, so from around roughly about an inch from the point where your bandana pieces come together is we're going to fit this tag inside between the two. You can use the space of the length of the tag to figure out where to go, but it is double-sided, so it doesn't matter which side you decide to put it on, but just go ahead and find a good spot for it to go, peel back one of the layers, and then go ahead and lay that right inside there, and then lay your other piece right on top and go ahead and clip it into place. So when you sew it, you're going to sew that right in, and you can get that as straight as you like and as close to the edge right there, and you should have plenty enough room to still see the branding on that tag. So go ahead and put another couple clips in there just to hold that thing in place, and then you're going to run a seam all the way down to that point. You're going to turn it and you're going to run it back to the other point at the other tab, and that is going to be it for the sewing. So all you need to do is, like I said before, get yourself a good starting point or do a little back stitch on it to make it nice and secure, and then you're going to run right over the top of where that tag is and straight down to the point. All right, when you get to the point, you're just going to do a pivot when you get right there to the edge. Now this is also about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can go ahead and lift up your tab, keep your needle in. I think I need maybe just a little tiny bit more because it's not going to be even. So I'm just going to give it one more stitch. Sometimes I just do it, but there we go. All right, and then now we are going to run it all the way back to the other edge, get a little starting point is that, another little back stitch, and then just run it from end to end to the other point. And then you want to make sure that you're going to keep that spot where the collar goes through wide open. Give it some back stitch so it gets nice and tight and secure, and then that way you won't get any loose ends on that. So now, if you can believe it, the sewing on this bandana is done. It's literally 3 long stitches and you are good to go. So, all right, so that is it, all the sewing on that. We're going to clip that edge to make that point as close as we can without getting into the thread there, and then we're going to turn it right side out. So let's go ahead and set that aside, and next let's go ahead and sew the bow pieces. This is really simple. These pieces are just flat pieces. We're going to sew it up one side, down around the edge. We're going to leave the centers open so that you can turn it right side out. So also same seam allowance, about a 1/4 inch. Just go ahead and run it down the center, down the edge there, make a pivot and run about 1 inch in, go ahead and stop, do some back stitch to give it some stability, go ahead and lift and just move it about 1 inch open. And as long as you have enough to get your fingers in there and turn it right side out, doesn't really matter how much you leave that open. Okay, to the corner corner, do a pivot, and all the way down to the other end. And that is how we're going to do it. Now we're going to do the same thing for so now your bow piece is all ready to go, and all you need to do is turn it right side out. But we're also going to clip those corners and things like that. So that's one piece of the bow. Now let's go ahead. This is the center piece of the bow. So now you can run it from the top corner, the top edge, right? Make a pivot and go ahead and run it down the side just like you did on the other stuff, and you want to leave that bottom open, and we're going to turn that right side out. Now there is an option to use grosgrain ribbon instead of this, because this sometimes can be a little tricky getting it turned right side out. Okay, lastly we have our bow tail, and we're going to go ahead and leave that open in the center as well, so we have a place to turn it right side out. All right, so same thing. It's really now some people would want to basically run it and stop there, or you can start on the edge and do it the other way around. You can start in the center and move your way out, but I like to go at it this way. So here we go. So we'll just go ahead and run our stitches down the edge and then towards the middle, again leaving enough space for you to turn that right side out, and then finish it up on the other end. And if you can believe this, we are almost done with sewing all 4 of those pieces, right? We've got our bandana, we've got our center, we've got our extension on the bow, as well as the bow piece itself. So now all we need to do is trim these things up and turn them right side out and press them. Okay, so here we are at the ironing board, and the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to clip the edge so that we get a nice clean point when we're finished up with the bandana. So once you've clipped the edge, and if you want, feel free to clip any loose strings, and then we're going to go ahead and turn this inside out, and this is where the bone folder is going to come into play, because it's going to help us get a nice clean point. And then we are going to press this. So let's get this turned inside out and pressed, and in the final stages. A simple press on both sides and around the corners, and oh my gosh, you guys, look at that. It is all done. That is the most simplest, easiest bandana on the market that I know of. So let's move on to the bow pieces. Okay, so let's start with our main bow piece. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to just do a little bit of trimming with the fabric just to get some of that extra bulk out of there, but just go ahead and trim it. And then we are going to turn it right side out and then use the bone folder to get a nice point on all of our points for the bow. So let's go ahead and get that turned right side out. Use a bone folder to get those points taken care of, and then we're going to press it. Okay, so once we've pressed it flat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to take it in the top layer and fold it back, fold it over, and then pull it back. So it's kind of going to be like on a little accordion fold, and then I'm just going to press it a little bit. And that's just going to give us some crease marks so that we can see what we're doing. So now I'm just going to pinch the center, and voila, we have like a little bow shape. So that's all you really need to do for that piece right there. So let's move on to the longer piece of the bow. So first thing I'm going to do is trim off the excess pieces and get it kind of close to the seam so we can get a nice clean point. Once we've got the pieces trimmed and maybe a little excess fabric trimmed off to get nice clean edges, go ahead and we're going to get that turned right side out and then pressed. Okay, now that we've got it pressed flat, we're going to go ahead and fold the long ends together and then back and forth. And so we're going to do the same process that we did with the main bow piece. And then we're just going to go ahead and press it in the middle. And these are just going to make creases so that we can use those as reference points when we go ahead and put this together. Now we've got one last piece, and that is the center of the bow. So same process, turn it right side out and press it. So you've got your bow piece, your tail, and your center piece. Those are all ready to be assembled. Okay, so here we've got our pieces for the hair bow. We've got our large piece and our tail as well as the center. So what we're going to do is we're going to repeat that accordion fold that we did on the ironing board, and we're going to hold it there. And then we've got our tail, which has also got an accordion fold on it, and we're just going to go ahead and center these. Now I'm going to pull the points together so we kind of figure out it's the center. And then I'm going to take one of these little elastic bands and I'm going to wrap it right around the center. Wrap it around a few times. So now the tighter that you do it is the tighter that the center of that bow is going to be. So if you want it looser and fluffier, then don't put as many rounds around it. Now, if you don't have the scrunchy bands, the little elastic bands, just use some thread. Just take some thread and wrap it around there, you know, nice and tight so that you can hold it in place. And then you're going to have 2 layers of the centerpiece wrapped around it. So you don't really need to worry about it. So just go ahead. Once you've got that in place, you're going to go ahead and take your center and we're going to glue it right to the top of that. So now sometimes what happens when you have the elastic bands in there and you put hot glue, you can actually melt and break the bands in the center. Now, sometimes that's a bad thing, but sometimes it's not, because sometimes when you break that band, it just makes that a little fluffier, but the actual fabric piece that you wrap around the center or ribbon, whichever one you're using, is going to hold that bow all together. Now, the other thing you might have noticed that I never went back and sewed closed the openings, and you don't need to because they basically get covered up by this centerpiece. So now if you want to be super fancy, go ahead and sew them up. So the last piece to this, once you've got your center in, is to add the Velcro to the back. So what I do is I glue the fuzzy side. This is a 1-wrap type of Velcro, so it kind of sticks to itself. So there's a fuzzy side and there's a little grainy side. The fuzzy side goes to the back of the bow. So go ahead and get that glued to the back, and then you'll just loop it around and it is good to go for your collar. So go ahead and set that off to the side. Now let's go ahead and make that double bow. So this is basically the 2 pieces layered together and then accordion fold right on top of each other. You don't have to do them separately, just right on top of each other. Find the center, add a little bit of the scrunchie or some thread, whichever you're working with, and go ahead and get it wrapped right around the center of that so that you can get your bow in a nice shape. So go ahead and shape it, form it however you like, whatever you like, whichever one, however you want to do it. And I'm going to use some grosgrain ribbon on this particular one. So I picked out a pink and I'm just going to go ahead and cut off a piece there. That's probably about 4 inches, way too much, by the way. But anyways, nonetheless, I usually take a lighter and just burn the edges of those ever so slightly before I wrap it around, because that'll keep it from fraying. But I didn't have it at the time for the video, so we went without. Now, the last thing you need to do is just add the Velcro to the back, just like the previous step, and you are good to go. You've got 2 bows. You've got the regular double bow and then the longer with the extensions on the bow, so more like a hair tie. So let's take a look and see what we've made. All right, we've got our sweetest pup around reversible bandana. This looks so good, you guys. It came out amazing and it's super, super simple. We also made the hair bow, or the bow with the tail and with the Velcro around the center, and we've got that. Now that comes with your pattern right there. You have the option to convert that one into a double bow, or also you could make a single bow on the top with the key fob. So also that is in the bonus videos. Check out YouTube to find out the video for that one. This looks amazing. And again, don't forget, it's double-sided and it's reversible. So let's just slip the collar on and see what it looks like. So the collar slips in just end to end, super easy, and you can just flatten it out, and there you go. You have it. It's one side is that, and when you want to strut your stuff around town and show everybody how just sweet your pup is, you can go ahead and reverse it to the other side, and it looks amazing. So there you go. You've got your double-sided bandana with your tag, and you've got the options to make the bows in a couple different ways. So there you have it, guys. We're all done. Head on over to my website at lisaannedesigns.com, and on the home page at the top you'll find a Shop With Me button. Looking for SVGs? Downloads for sublimation? You can find those there too.